And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, today we're taking a look at New Bedford, a game of historic whaling and town building. Now I know when this first showed up on Kickstarter there was some small outcry because the game was about whaling, which is a practice many detest, but I don't know that that is or should be a problem because the game is not like saying, whaling's amazing. In fact, it shows you how whaling pulls whales out of the ocean and stuff. This is a game about a historical thing that actually happened, where they get whales, and at this point you're trying to get the most points. I guess as you're playing the game you can say you're freeing the whales and making movies about it. Anyhow, this is a game in which it's a worker placement game, and then it's a tile drawing from a bag game. Let me show you. New Bedford takes 12 rounds over the course of the game, and at the end of those 12 rounds, players are going to get points for returned whales. So as whales come in, you have a chance to buy them yourself. It's just kind of a funny thing, returned whales. But anyhow, each whale is going to be worth a certain number of points. So the bowhead whales are going to be worth 2 points at the end of the game. The sperm whales are going to be worth 1 point, and the right whales are going to be worth 4 points. All these whales you have to go out whaling for, and that's kind of the point of the game. You're going to be building buildings which are worth a point at the end of the game. There's a few buildings that are worth extra victory points, like this one here is worth an extra 5 at the end of the game. And then money can be turned into points at the end of the game. Now what players are doing over the course of the game is each round of the game, players have 2 workers. And they're going to be placing those workers somewhere in the city. Now one of the places that they can place in the city is in the middle here, the town hall, which is going to let them build buildings. And when you build a building, you simply are going to pay the cost of that building. There are 3 resources in this game. There are brick, there is food, these big wheels of cheese, and there is wood. And you'll be collecting these resources, different place gives them to you. And so when you build these buildings, remember they're a point for you at the end of the game, but they give people another spot to put them. So when you put a building out, you're going to put it out basically on which side of the board you're at, so players know, which buildings are yours. Now when you put a worker out on the spot, these 5 center spots here and the 2 spots up here, the first person to put something there is going to get a better benefit than everyone else. For example, in the warehouse here, the first person gets a brick and then 1 resource of their choice. Everyone else simply gets a brick. In the forest, the first person gets 2 wood. Everyone else gets, the first person gets 3 wood, everyone else gets 2. Up here, everyone can sell goods there for their cost, which is 1, 2, or 3. The first person gets an extra coin. And then at the farm, the first person gets 3 food, everyone else gets 2. Here, when the first person goes there, they can build a building for 1 resource less, and everybody else can just build a regular building. So there's all sorts of buildings. You can see the bank here gives people money. Here you can move an extra ship, and we'll talk about that. This one gives you brick. This building gives you 2 wood and a food. This one here, so if you go there, you can steal it, and whoever owns it is going to get 2 coins at the end of every round. This will give you a coin for every whale that you have on your ship. Here you can sell goods, and you get double for the first ones. Here you get 1 of every resource. Here you can sell wood for extra money. Here you can launch a ship for half food. Then there's these point buildings that give you extra points at the end of the game. So there's lots of different buildings that you can build. Now, ships. That's over here. And this is pretty much one of the main point of this game. And that is on these spots, you are going to place this here and you can prepare a ship. You have 2 ships that you can build, ship 1 and ship 2. The ship 1 is a smaller ship, ship 2 is a larger ship. That doesn't mean anything, it's just so you can differentiate what ship is which. So when you build a ship, you pay the wood, whatever. If you're first, it's 1. If you're second, it's 2. And you put a ship here. Okay? So you can prepare both ships if you want to. Then when you go to the city pier, you can launch your ship. Now the distance you launch your ship is how much food you pay. So if I pay 5 food, I would launch my ship here. If I pay 1 food, I can launch my ship here. And the first person to go here pays 1 food less. Now the reason you launch these ships and the first person goes to the first position and the second position, etc., is each round of the game, after all the workers have been placed, all the ships are going to move in 1. And then from a bag, you're going to draw tiles equal to the number of ships that are out there plus 1. So here I would draw 4 tiles, and you can see that I have drawn a bowhead whale, a sperm whale, a right whale, a bowhead whale, and I've drawn 2 water tiles. Now water tiles are garbage, but each player, starting with the person who's farthest out in the first position, can take a tile and place it on their ships. Ships can have as many as they want. So if you draw a lot of water, well, the ships that are closer to shore are going to get less. So the farther out you go, not only will you have more turns to collect things, because these move in, and when they get in, you can't get whales anymore with that ship, but also the farthest out will have the first chance at grabbing whales. At the end of each turn, or before you draw, you'll throw any water back in the bag. And even though there's a building that takes water out of the game, for the most part, water is going to be thrown back in. So as you whale more often, as happened in real life, there's going to be fewer and fewer whales that are available for the taking. When a ship arrives all the way back here, then the person who has that ship will take the whales off that ship, and they can either pay the cost for that whale. So this right whale, they can pay $2 and stick it here, and it's worth a point. But maybe they don't have enough money, or they don't want to for whatever reason. They can then sell that whale. They'll get half the money for that, or they get the money for that, half the money for that whale when they sell it back. Each other player can buy that whale, starting with the person to their left, so that someone else can pay for the whale. So you have to be careful when you get rid of these whales, because as you get rid of a whale, it's very possible that you are giving somebody else a whale that they can buy. So even though when you sell a whale, you got to be careful. You get some money from it, not a lot of money actually, but you're also giving other people the opportunity to have points, because remember, whales that you have here are points at the end of the game. And that's really what you're going to do. You're going to do this for 12 rounds. Remember, at the end of the game, every building is worth a point. Some are worth more. Whales that you have on your board here are worth points, and money is worth points. Most points, winner of the game. There's also a solo variant of the game, and in this, you will turn over one of these boards. Each player is a player board, and these become different captains, and these captains will act different ways so that you can simulate playing against them. There's really a lot to like about New Bedford, and it's something that I enjoy. I like having my own building. See, when you have a building that's on your part, that one that you build, that building is free for you to use, but everyone else has to pay you a coin to use it. Well, that's intriguing, because I can buy buildings to get some money. I buy buildings I think other people want, or just a building that I want to use for free. And so that's an aspect of the game that I enjoy, especially because money is points at the end of the game, but having some money come in means I can then use other people's buildings. Also, and this is a rule that I think they should it's printed on each player board, but it's easy to forget. You can always, on any time during your turn, you can pay 3 gold for 2 food or 3 gold for 2 wood. And that could be a really big deal. So I love the building aspect. I love the workers. I like how the workers in the middle, the first person there gets a better benefit. Everywhere else, the first person is really the only person who can go there. But I just like the different buildings, and I think that's a lot of fun. And if you play with fewer than 4 people, you don't have to use all the buildings, but the number of buildings is cool. I also like the whole whale aspect. Pulling from a bag is cool. There's a little bit of randomness to that, but at the same time, you have to say, okay, do I want to save a lot of food and go out really far? Because that's really useful, and I'll be out longer. The problem is, if I go out farther, I get those really good whales. But when those whales come in, I need to have enough money to buy them, because you really want to buy your whales. You really don't want to set up the person next to you to buy a whale that you're the person who went out and got the stuff for. And that is a small flaw in the game. I don't know if it's even a flaw, but a player who is not terrific or might miscalculate money, the person next to them can be sitting there going, because they will get first crack at buying the whales. They get to pick one of the whales that you can't sell, and so a really bad player can help the person to their left. That's not that big of a deal. I do have one major problem with this game, and that is this. Now, I'm doing this one in a separate review. New Bedford Rising Tide. This is an expansion that adds a 5th player and adds a whole pile of new buildings. Now, I read online one of the Dice Hate Me Games talked about how this was their favorite box size. And this box size is fine, but it barely holds the game. So if they included this, you can't fit them both in the same box. I guess you could if you smash a bit, but they don't. The pieces and everything for New Bedford are fine. But I don't often think this about games. I don't think expansions are necessary or what have you for a game. However, in this case, it really feels like they designed the game New Bedford and then chopped off the 5th player and a lot of the extra buildings. Because, see, New Bedford is good. With this expansion, it is very good. Why? Because every round you have different buildings. This adds extra buildings. There's a variety of buildings, and it adds a 5th player, which is really not that bad for this game. 5th player is easy to throw in. And so, again, I'll talk more about that in the expansion, but it really feels like that should have been in here because I think some people go, yeah, New Bedford's fine, it's good. But if they had played with the expansion, I think they'd be like, wow, okay, ooh, I wonder what buildings are out this time. And it makes it that much more intriguing. If you play New Bedford with 4 players, you're going to see the same buildings in every game, unless you buy the expansion, in which case the buildings have variety. And I feel that that's a shame. I really feel like they shouldn't have been separated. And you can argue and say, well, you don't need the 5th player and all that. I understand that, and I just think they should have made a bigger box, like a Ticket to Ride size box, and put everything in it. And that would have been a complete, very, very good game. As it is, I still did enjoy New Bedford. I think you do need to get the expansion, otherwise you'll see the same buildings all the time. But I like the aspect of putting out workers and going in that bag and getting the whales and then making sure you have enough money to buy those whales. Money is there's the 4 currencies in this game, the money, the wood, the bricks, and the food, and each one's used in a different way. Well, brick and wood is basically for building. Food is going out for whaling, sometimes for building, and money to use other people's buildings and to pay for the whales when you get them in. All that flows really well. It's kind of a tight game. There's not a ton of points in this game, so you need as many as you can possibly get. Certainly one to check out. It's an interesting theme to me, I thought. So you want to get it. You definitely want to get the expansion too. That's New Bedford. Dice Tower Judgment approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!